the Academy have never heard anything like it. They thought I was completely bonkers. But what else are they going to do? Hold the door open. So we figured we must.
Well, and they're heavy. They're heavy. I mean, so somebody paid a lot of money to ship those back to you because those things are heavy.
Indeed. Try carrying 2 of them while you're shaking people's hands. I'll tell you this little story and then I better shoot off because I'm supposed to be somewhere else. But on the first time I went with my mum, we finished the Oscars. We got to do a live broadcast back to home. And I was excited because we had been invited to Elton John's party. Could you imagine that? And more importantly, the Vanity Fair party. And as a young man, I was like, oh, this could be good. But my mother decided she'd had enough, her feet were aching, and she wanted to go back to the hotel, have a cup of cocoa and watch reruns on the television. And that's exactly what we ended up doing. And we got to the door of the hotel and there was these 2 young women waiting for a taxi turn up, and one of them sort of stopped me and said, oh, is that an Oscar? And I said, yes, it is. And she took it from me, and she was holding it slightly provocatively to her chest like this. My mother reaches in, wrenches it out of her grabs me by the ear, in front of these 2 young women, and marches me off for a cup of cocoa, and I ended up massaging her feet. That was the remainder of my Oscar night. Anyway, on that note, as much as I'd love to stay with you, we've got other things to talk about, and it's so lovely seeing everyone here 20 years on, and so nice having a chance to talk. But so I don't waffle on, I'll bugger off and leave you all to it. So power to the ring, eh? And cheers to you all.
After the movies were over, we did 2 things. One was, we made a movie. It's a documentary, it's called Ringer's Lord of the Fans. And it is actually not just about the movie fandom, it is about the fandom from when The Hobbit was written on forward. It's really kind of cool, so look for it somewhere if you ever want to find out the history. And it's actually a really pretty decent academic dive into the history of Tolkien fandom. Because the critics were not kind to him at times in his career. The other thing we did is we actually hosted our own conventions. Because coming to Comic-Con was fun, but we wanted just all Tolkien all the time. And maybe with the new Amazon series, maybe we'll do that again, or not. We don't know. New publications, real quick. I'm going to get through this real quick. One is, has anybody here ever had or read or seen the annotated Hobbit? Okay, there's a 3rd edition coming. Now, originally it was supposed to come out in March, but now if you look on Amazon, it says January of 2050. And that's so far away that to me means we don't know when it's coming out. So we don't know when that one's coming. We do know that they're working on it and that they've got new notes from Tom Shippey. Douglas Anderson. Sorry, Douglas Anderson. And last but not least, Letters from Father Christmas. Anybody here ever see that book? A few of you have read it? Okay. This is the letters that Tolkien used to write to his children, and he pretended to be Father Christmas, and he would talk about polar bear, and there was elves and orcs, and there was little battles, and there was things breaking in the workshop and things like that, and he used to draw little pictures. And so this is a collection, and they now have more letters and more artwork. So it comes out in October, so if you're looking for, we always do, and at the end of the year, a list of Tolkien-themed things for Christmas gifts. That's the first thing I'm buying.
Yeah, such a great book.
All right. Abby, I'm going to let you sort of kick off what's coming. if you want to talk a little bit about, I'm going to let you read this next screen.
Oh, sorry. Hi. So I am slowly losing my voice. I'm really sorry. I don't normally sound like this. So
You see the map?
yeah. So I got a chance to actually go on Instagram and see pictures of the map, and I'm like super excited because that's like a new area, and that opens it up to the possibility of having more races of different diversities. And I'm really trying to hold out for Idris Elba because I think that he would make a very regal elf. Seriously.
Regal elf. I'm always, if they're going far east or far south, Lawrence McAware. Now you guys all know he was Lurtz, and he was the Witch King, and he was Gothmog. I mean, Lawrence McAware, big Maori guy from New Zealand, played lots and lots of bad guys. I would love for Lawrence to finally get to play like a leader of men, of a village headman, of a good village, of good people who are not, because in Second Age, and we think this is going to be Second Age because Numenor is on the map. If Numenor is in the map, and we're in Second Age, Sauron hasn't corrupted anybody yet. So we have lots and lots and lots of room for other people's. I would love for them to go to new places we've never seen before.
Yes.
And that's kind of what we're thinking when they started showing this map, is that maybe they'll go to all the regions we haven't seen, that we're familiar with because they pop up as the ruins of this or that kingdom. But now wouldn't it be nice to see it as a vibrant, living community and see what the people were like there and what that prehistory actually looked like? But before we get there, we know that they purchased the rights in 2017. And they sort of have to be filming within 2 years of that, and they bought the rights in the fall of 2017, which means they need to begin filming by this fall. If they're not filming, they might lose the rights, and they pay $250 or $250 million for this.
Wait, it only costs $250?
Can I say a little tidbit possibly? I do think that they are filming because I got a casting call.
Oh.
Yeah. But unfortunately I don't qualify because I'm not an English citizen anymore. Thank you for joining the US military. But I'm still on the list, and I got a casting call for a stand-in position in Scotland. So.
I met a Scottish actor the other day who works on Outlander, so he's been very excited about the prospect of getting to also do some, because he's been doing battle sequences in a kilt. So he sort of has the whole old history kind of combat thing going. But yeah, he's so Scotland might be where they film some of it, but you do know that a couple weeks ago they kind of finalized New Zealand for the bulk of the work. And everyone kept going, does that mean Scotland's out? And I don't think Scotland's out, but we know New Zealand is in. So there will be a little bit of filming in both, and we think it's just the Scotland will probably be where they start the initial filming so that they can get those cameras rolling in time for this license not to expire. Because that would suck.
And they've just recently called for extras, so it's not too late to get down there, you guys.
Yeah.
Yes, for New Zealand, there's a huge casting for that too.
Yeah, so again, the map by having Numenor on it does sort of point towards Second Age. Now, for the longest time, I was calling for every time when you have one of these panels, who's running the show? Who's running the show? Who's running the show? Well, we finally have some names. And who wants to take it?
Oh, awesome.
Wait, it should come up. Nope, there it is.
There it is.
Sorry, next screen. Okay, Juan Antonio J.R.R. Bayona. Recently filmed Jurassic Park, Fallen World. Or is it Fallen World?
Fallen Kingdom.
Fallen Kingdom.
Let's
Yes.
not-
So that was his most recent work. But who wants to read his text there? Because he actually seems to be a bit of a Tolkien fan. Go ahead, Debbie.
J.R.R. Tolkien created one of the most extraordinary and inspiring stories of all time. And as a lifelong fan, it is an honor and a joy to join this amazing team, said Bayona. I can't wait to take audiences around the world to Middle-earth and have them discover the wonders of the Second Age with a never-before-seen story.
Now, how many of you are a little bit cautious about never before seen? Now, never before seen means it's never been put on screen, but it doesn't mean it's not actually in any of the books.
It does say seen, not written.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I think when this statements first came out, people were worried that they were going to make things up.
Right.
But I have a
We're still
feeling
worried about that.
Oh, yeah.
we don't want to worry about that. We want it to be stuff that's from Tolkien,
Yeah.
or at least all of our message boards want it to be. All right, so he's the first director. He's going to direct the first 2 episodes. But we do have some writers who've actually been working on the series for about a year now. Patrick and JD have been working on writing and breaking down story ideas for almost a year, which means, well, hopefully they've got a lot of really good material worked out. We're also not 100% clear of what rights they have. J.R.R. Tolkien sold the rights to The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings and what was in the appendices. And that's pretty much it, which means Silmarillion's out. Now you have some stories that are both in Silmarillion and Unfinished Tales and in the appendices, such as Beren and Luthien, and a few of these other stories. And so having to go through and figure out how to unknit those so that you know what you can use and what you can't say is probably why they've been working on this for so long.
And this is, if I can jump in a second again, this is one of the areas of concern, naturally, because if you're familiar with the appendices, you know that a lot of the content is an outline and is a quick scan of thousands of years. So there's a lot of room to go far afield. And we really believe that it's essential to not get too far off, and continue to maintain the purity, if you will, or the authenticity, what brings all of us to Middle Earth and Tolkien's storytelling.
Yeah, so they finally have started filling out the writer's room, and we have Jennifer Hutchison, and if you take a look, she's written for Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and you'll notice that little thing she's kind of holding in her hands, that's her Writers Guild Award, so at least we know she's got some chops. She's come from good shows and she's won some awards. Brian Cogman is one of the writers that came out of Game of Thrones, so he's done big epics. And I know that one of the biggest concerns on our message boards in the last month or 2 have been, well, Tolkien never wrote stories like what you see in Game of Thrones. And we all know that George wrote more. He was more into, I guess, grittiness, and Tolkien was sort of not into the grittiness. And hopefully the writers realize there's a difference between the source material.
How did you guys feel about that?
Yeah. But, I mean, how do you feel about them going more Game of Thrones? No. Okay, good.
Now, when it comes,
You're my people. Okay. just making sure.
now when it comes to Second Age, some of the stories in Second Age kind of parallel some. I mean, there's a lot more. Yeah,
There is
it's
like
not all
political stuff
people dancing
in
under
New
the party
York,
tree.
for sure. Yeah. Like,
I think that there is a middle ground, and that there is a delicate way to go about this. So long as you keep true to the spirit of Tolkien, and it's all about tone. If you keep Tolkien's tone and style, then I personally would be fine with new material. But so long, again, as it's in keeping with the source material. And if there are raw stories, if there are stories that are more visceral than what Tolkien covered in his original works, just keep them at a level that would make the professor roll over in his grave.
yeah.
And that the families can watch. Because
Yeah,
remember,
like that.
we're a family-friendly fandom.
Yeah.
You don't have to duplicate something else to make money. And I mean, let's face it, they need to make money, they want to make money, otherwise they wouldn't be doing this. But you don't have to go too far afield, and you can take what's there, those themes, what we know, what we love about the work, and spin from there and build from there without introducing these elements that are really foreign to the writing of J.R.R. Tolkien.
But let's be honest, there's a lot of darkness in The Lord of the Rings.
For sure, there's
Oh,
plenty
yeah.
of room.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right? There's
Yeah.
plenty of room.
But-
As much as I love Middle Earth, when I imagine ever transporting myself there and living there, I'm like, no, that's too scary.
Yeah.
Like if
Like,
I
I
could live
would go
in the
to
Shire
Rivendell and I'd go
protected
to
by
the-
the Rangers, that's one thing.
Well, like
Yeah.
when I was reading through the Silmarillion, I was like, Beren and Luthien is the only story in this entire book that has a happy ending.
After what they go through. I mean, after he loses a hand.
Yeah, he loses a hand, he dies, she dies, they come back, and then they get to live happily ever after.
There's that.
But
The other nice thing about what came out of the release of those maps was the Brian Sibley as the consultant on the maps, and then John Howe as the artist who drew the map. Because the map was like really, I mean, it was like nice and blue, and it was different tones than what we're used to. I mean, you look at it, you kind of go, oh, that's Middle Earth. Until you started going, wait, there's a mountain range way off to the east, and oh my God, that's Numenor. So it was really kind of nice knowing that John Howe, who worked on the previous Lord of the Rings, and of course has a long, long history in Middle Earth artistry. So it's nice to know that they've got consultants and artists with the knowledge base that we all recognize already from previous existing materials. And we're going to get into a section called speculation, which we've been talking about already, clearly. Yeah, spoiler alert. Again,
Surprise.
the map. But it's that mountain range way over here on this side that's not necessarily, it's got an old name and I forget what it is, but it's not on most of the maps. So if you pick up The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings, you're not usually going to see that mountain range. It usually comes in like the Silmarillion or the Unfinished Tales.
I can't remember the name of that mountain range.
Josh Long,
Yes, ma'am.
do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, it says surely we must begin with the forging of the rings of power, and we saw some of that. I mean, if you want to go worry about like fan fiction stuff with like the Shadow of Mordor games and stuff, so there we already kind of dealt with some of that. 2 minutes, okay. I'll try to be quick. So the concern I would, I think for a lot of us is that those games were fun to play and everything, but hopefully Amazon will look at what is there in reference to that and kind of stay within the lanes of traffic and not kind of go off the grid that Shadow of Mordor did.
Well, and with this, it's this is basically a fan art thing of exhibit of Anatar, with the red and everything like that. And Anatar is the fair form of who would later become Sauron. And he, of course, he's the one that sort of went and talked to the Elven Smiths about forging these rings. And actually, right now, Badali Jewelry, who has the license for the book license for Middle Earth items, they're working on the 9 Rings of Men. And that will be released fairly soon. And it was probably a spoiler. But I know they have 8 of the 9 done. So they are doing that. I know they already have the Elvish rings and they have the Dwarvish rings, so they will have a complete set. So you'll be able to get all 20 rings from Badali Jewelry in the next year or so. It's kind of nice that it's an interesting synchronicity. But I almost think that if you're going to go to a pre-age era of the War of the Ring, that you almost have to either start in Numenor or you have to start with Anatar and the forging of the rings and the corruption of the men and dwarves. I mean, it's a logical story point.
Well, I feel like, that's the best hook to get people who are not as familiar with Middle Earth and are more familiar with just the rings. Like, okay, here is the prehistory of the rings. And then from there, you can sort of launch into Numenor. And you can even maybe try to go back to the first age and the Silmarils.
And you get the fall of Numenor, which is you have corruption starting to happen and infighting and a lot of chaos, sort of like Atlantis. And so you end up with Numenor sinking, but luckily 9 ships sail west or sail east, I guess. It's officially
They
east.
sail east,
Yeah, they sail east, and those are the ships that become the kingdoms of Gondor and Arnor in the north. And so that is a huge action point. You can have an entire season around the beginning of this corruption and getting these ships made and getting people out secretly.
Yeah, one of the things that I would love for them to try to tackle in this, if they do decide to go this route, is the idea of mortality and immortality, which is sort of at the heart of the big schism that happened in Numenor. Because elves are immortal, and if they're killed, they go to the halls of Mandos in Valinor. When men die, nobody knows what happens to their spirit. And so there is this big debate between the men and the elves, because men want immortality, and the elves are like, but your mortality is a gift. This is a gift from Eru and Luvatar. This is a major thing for you. And men are still like, yeah, but we still die. And we don't know what happens to us when we're gone. And there is some dialogue in the Silmarillion where this debate happens, and it is absolutely beautiful. And I would love to see that debate take place in this series.
And this is where one of the burning questions is, right? How much latitude do they have, and how far can they go? Because they don't have the rights to the Silmarillion. They have the rights to the appendices.
Right.
So wish they had come. I know Amazon Studios is here, but oh my gosh, I wish somebody from this production would have come. It would be so nice for them to start talking to us.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean us, I mean us.
Yeah.
It would have been nice for there to have been a panel, even if it was just like a 10-minute tag on the end of The Boys in Carnival Row. It would have just been kind of awesome to have it as a tease, because we know it's coming. Wouldn't it be nice if you guys actually said some words?
Yeah,
That we don't have to
say
guess. I
something.
mean, 2 years of us guessing, I've done 2 years of guessing before, from 1999 to 2001.
So, for example, if the OneRing.net had been asked to do an interview with John Howe about the creation of that map, would you have been interested in that as a consumer? Yes. Right, so some missed opportunities there.
Mm-hmm.
And also that angst that we all share, who's going to want to watch this production if it's not true to the story? So developing that relationship, taking this community that's here to the next generation can really help what we all want to see come true. And we know that even the best studios can create things that, are wanting, shall I say. And so we really hope that there'll be opportunities to build that relationship and to have some connections and really further the community in a sense.
We saw a good example of that today. I mean, Richard stopped by and talked to us, and it's 20 years after the fact, and it would be nice for Amazon to do that, because we could build that with them. Mm-hmm. And so, come and talk to us. Tell us what your plans are. Let us know that you care about the material the way we care about the material. I mean, I live just south of Kansas City, Missouri. I'm flying all the way out here. I love doing what I do with you guys, talking about the collectibles. This stuff means a lot to me. Tell me what you're going to do with something I care about.
Yeah. Amazon has a great untapped resource in this community, and I'd love to see them take advantage of that. Like, help us help you.
And I'm going to re-up that. Okay, so you saw me scroll through a bunch of other things, and it's just because we don't know anything, so we put up, are they going to talk about Elrond, Elladan, El-Rohir? Are we going to hear whatever happened to Elrond's twin brother who was immortal? Are we ever going to see young Aragorn meeting a young Thengel, which is the father of Theoden, or going and meeting Ecthelion, which is the father of Denethor? Going to Gondor, are we going to see all those adventures? Which would be a much closer, but because we saw that Second Age map, I think young Aragorn is something that if they do 5 or 6 seasons, it would be at the end, as opposed to at the beginning. I think, we have to get the rings. I think we have to get the rings.
Yeah.
Or the Fall of Numenor, or both. I'm down with both.
Well, the great thing is
But I also want ice cream.
the great thing is the rings kind of lead to the downfall of Numenor in a way.
This is true. Yep. Particularly since the rings, they go into the lust and the tyranny and the 7 deadly sins.
Yeah.
So any cosplayers, out, round, and over to the side. Got it? Because I think we're done.